it's been a transition, like anytime a kid is in a new school, they don't have the same teachers, the same friends. It's a new environment, especially as a little kid. I mean, they can, their anxiety level goes up. So the last couple of weeks have been a little rough for them, a little harder.
Yeah, that can be any change at that age is tough. They're when they're used to a
Yeah.
certain environment and the same place, same teachers, same kids around them, they feel comfortable. They get used to that. They have stories every day.
Oh,
But when
totally.
there's a change, then they're a little nervous. I think they feel just like we feel nervous. I mean, when we go into a new place, new environment, starting
Yeah.
a new class or new job or whatever, we feel nervous too. I mean, it's same as them. I mean, I stood in. I think today the traffic was horrible in this morning for drop off. Today was the first day of school, and I took the morning kind of off. Not really off, but I had a delayed start. I blocked off my schedule in the morning just so I could go with
So you could
him.
take them. Yeah.
Yeah, so I could take with him. So me and my wife, we both took him to school, and we stood in the line forever. Forever. I mean, the summer was 3 months long or 2 months long, but for whatever reason, they decided to do construction on the street today. So, so we were in the
I
line
mean, yeah.
forever.
Why time it better?
Why? Yeah, just the first day of school. Let's just start
Right.
putting excavators through the street. Yeah,
They really wanted to make sure every kid gets a tardy slip on their first day.
yeah, but yeah, it's funny, see them starting their new day, going in all excited, and I'm like, man, he's just starting. He's not even in kindergarten yet, and he has so many years ahead of him.
Dude, I
If he
know.
if he decides to become a physician, that's another lifetime of
Oh
training,
God,
probably
yeah.
another 25 years that he'll have to just
Yeah,
sit
well,
through
we'll see you
school.
in your mid-30s, bro.
Yeah.
But that's an interesting question, right? Like, what do you think about that? I mean, as a doctor yourself, obviously, what do you think if your son wanted to go into medicine? I mean, is it even something you'd want him to do? Is it something kind of just on him? You're happy with whatever? Would you encourage him, guide him, sway him one way or another? I mean, how do you think about that as a career path?
Yeah, it's tough as a parent, right? You want the best life for them. You want to provide for them, and you want to make sure they, even after you're gone and not a big part of their life, they have a comfortable, easy life. They make something of their life. They accomplish things. They make an impact on society. You wish for all those things, but I think there's many other ways of making that impact. I mean, honestly, our parents and generation before us, I mean, a big emphasis in immigrant households, as you know, was you either got to be a physician, a lawyer, an engineer, and those were the three options. But
Yeah, for sure.
but
Dude, my brother
now,
and I would always joke about that. We were with our parents. It's like, well, you're allowed to do DBLE, either a doctor, go into some business, be a lawyer, or an engineer, and that was it. You had four options if you
yeah,
were in an immigrant parent household.
yeah, even the business thing is a little some families emphasize that starting a business, or some families don't, but there were very few options for us growing up, and we knew that our parents thought, and maybe it was this way, maybe they were right, that the only path to success for us first generation kids is to be in one of these prestigious fields where we do get a lot of education. But I think the paradigm is changing now. I mean, I think we've talked about in the past that school education training will not be the same what it used to be. It's not going to be the same idea of going to school, listening to a teacher, talk about certain topics based on her knowledge, her research, and teaching the kids, and then them going and applying those topics and doing a test based on what they were told by their teacher. I think the whole narrative of education is going to change now, as per medicine. There's a lot of good things about medicine, a lot of bad things about medicine.
Yeah.
There's some days I'm very thankful to be in this field, and I would want my son to be in this field and practice medicine. And but then the constant administrative tasks that we have to deal with, the constant pressure, the mental health load. I mean, sometimes I'm like, maybe he'll be better off not going into medicine. It's tough. It's a very rewarding field. It's a rewarding career, but uh, I don't know if I can just recommend this profession to my kid.
Yeah, I bet like anyone in any field probably feels along those same lines about their craft and if they would want their kids to do it, right? I mean, whether you're some type of professional like, a doctor, lawyer, whatever, if you're an athlete, if you are a chef, whatever your career is, right? Like you know the ins and outs of it. You know for your personality what you like about it, what you don't like about it. Whereas someone with a completely different mindset, completely different personality may love the same things you hate about that, you know? Um, I think it's really difficult. Even though I asked you that question, I'm like thinking about it now. Like, would I want my son to go into medicine? I mean, it's so hard to say because I don't really know. He's currently he's only 3 years old, and it's so hard to know what kind of person he's going to grow up into, and what his personality traits are going to be, what his natural tendencies are going to be, what he's going to be drawn to. I certainly think what you were saying earlier, Humayu, that I'm probably going to be much more open than my parents were in terms of what careers I'd be totally fine with. I mean, as long as my child is doing something tangible, something legitimate, that I mean, obviously, you got to be pragmatic. You got to have something that pays the bills, something that is going to cover your finances. That's just a reality of life. And then something you like, something you enjoy, because when you enjoy something, your heart is in it. You devote your mind to it. You don't get sidetracked. You don't get lazy at it. And that's how you progress. And you find creative avenues. You can build something that's new, take it into a different avenue. Um, so I think I would be totally fine, really, regardless of what path he chose. But my parents never told me to be a doctor, to do medicine. Neither of them were physicians. In fact, no one in my family is. Um, Most people in my family were engineers, but they obviously were very excited when I told them that I'm thinking about going into medicine. It was a big deal for them. Um, it was some amount of pressure, and not necessarily to just be a doctor, but to do something. Like whether I went to law school, med school, became an engineer, something like that. But it was very strong pressure that I felt because I wanted to make my parents proud. Not that I was, not in a negative way, not that I was like pushed or guilt tripped into it, but I really wanted to make them happy by doing that.
Yeah, but the emphasis was always on something more education, math, science
Definitely,
related, right? That was
definitely.
always the focus. But so many kids we saw, you probably saw them in college as well. So many kids are forced and boxed into this idea of going into something that's math and science related, whereas humanities or something more creative was their true skill set. I mean, there's so many people that were just way better at creative writing, and they were just never able to pursue that because their parents told them, "Hey, that does not make money," which yeah, somewhat true sometimes, but the parents always told you that fields such as medicine, engineering, something that's more practical is what's going to give them a better career. But I think
Yeah.
with our generation, the thinking more is that, hey, if you can do something to the best of your ability and you do it really well, I mean, you can be very successful, right? I mean, there's people that we know now that who have gone into journalism or media personality, podcasters, you know, uh, uh, or chefs, right?
Meaning not us, real podcasters.
Yeah, not us, real podcasters,
Yeah,
people who are actually doing something with podcasting rather than us just spending this Wednesday afternoon in the cold office.
right.
Uh, but chefs. I mean, I have so much respect for people who have that creative ability to create a amazing dish. Right? We
Dude,
talked about restaurants.
that is so true, right? Like this is a restaurant that you've recommended forever. I went to Theodore Rex yesterday
Yeah,
for dinner,
nice.
and like I just don't understand how these chefs they come up with these dishes. Like it's stuff that I've never heard of or even thought would be mixed together. Like these dumplings with like wagyu inside them
Yeah.
that were made in this mushroom broth. I was like, I would never think in a million years to put that together. I mean, it tasted phenomenal. It was
Yeah,
so good.
and they have that dish which is just like
Oh
these
man.
onions that they like put in this milky sauce, and it's just onions and this milk sauce that you just eat, and it's just like, whoa, this is
Yeah.
amazing. Like,
And
how
never
did they
would I
even come
think,
up
I
with
mean,
this,
like
right?
the only time in my life I eat onions is if they're just in something caramelized or like it's in a burger. Like I never eat onions otherwise. But yeah, it's like some onions in that milk thing. I don't even understand it. It's just so good. But just like, not to sidetrack too much, I mean, that restaurant is amazing. But like the creativity that comes with knowing, putting all these different things together, it's almost like chemistry in a meal. It's really remarkable. I don't have that kind of creativity at
Yeah.
all in that way.
I mean,
It's amazing.
yeah, it's our parents kind of had this idea of motivating us towards education, like get good at math. I remember I was not, in my first or second grade, I was not very good at math, and math was, one of the things I struggled with. And then my parents got me a math tutor, and the math tutor kind of made me, kind of clear up some concepts. And I got so good at math that I was the top of my class in math after that. And going forward, math was some of my strongest subjects or topics that I was studying. Right,
Dude, you were
but
you were a mathlete.
I was an athlete, but
A mathlete, baby.
if I was struggling with maybe writing or creative writing or English, uh, or reading, maybe I don't know if they would have been that focused in getting me a tutor for that, because those kind of fields were never emphasized. But I think as for us as parents, with the way things are going and how the world is about to change, I think in a big way, I think the key will be understanding our kids' strength. What are they good at? What do they excel at? Which is the best? What are some of the skills that they can use to master and become the master at that craft? Finding those out for them and helping them find out independently, and then kind of helping them achieve those skills and mastery of those skills. I think that will be the key, and that I hope to achieve as a parent as well.
Yeah, I mean, that would be like finding the golden fleece. Is actually identifying at a young age what your child's strengths are, what the weaknesses are, and steering them appropriately. It's so tough, right? And like, I think parents, I mean, so many parents have the best intentions. Um, just like, the cliches, like those dads who are like grilling their kids about sports or making them run suicides when they come home, and they start lifting weights at a young age. They make them do push-ups all the time. They do drills, throwing football, catching it, running routes when the kid's like 7 years old. They're doing it because they want their kid to succeed. They want their kid to be awesome. And some of it may be like they're trying to live vicariously through their child, and they think their child has some athletic prowess. But a lot of those kids, I mean, I'm just using that football as an example, who are like drilled and kind of forced into it at a young age to do it again and again and again and make it part of their life. A lot of them just like burn out in terms of their desire to keep going, and they drop out of it. I mean, I knew a bunch of kids that were in school with me that were like awesome, awesome athletes. They had college prospects, scholarships, all this stuff, and they just didn't want to do it anymore. I mean, they were realistic. They knew they would probably never get to the NFL. They're good enough to get a full ride at a good school. They just didn't want to do it. They were just sick of it. It was done for them. And I think academics is a lot of the same way. If you're just so much drilling in, kind of what you're talking about, forcing a kid to go so strongly into STEM stuff, getting them after school tutoring with math and science, putting them into summer camps, focusing on this kind of stuff. Um, and they're not bent towards it. They would rather be doing, like you're saying, creative writing or literature or history, whatever it is. They're artistic. They want to do music. You're not really letting them flourish in the way that they want to. And yeah, they may have a natural aptitude and get good at doing math or being good at biology, but they may not love it, and it may kind of sour their taste for it once they get further along into college.
Yeah, I mean, as a dad, it's a very hard balance, right? To find out, to kind of know that line of when you're like motivating them to do something or pushing them towards a field that you think they're good at, versus pushing them towards a burnout in that state, right? I mean, when are you pushing them to start hating something that you push them so much, versus just giving them the right nudge, be like, hey, like you're really good at uh, you know, piano, and why don't you pursue that more, instead of taking them to piano lessons 2 or 3 times a week, where they get a little burnt out by it. I kind of noticed that with Aslan, where we were doing swimming lessons twice a week, and he was excited in the beginning. He was learning and really good at swimming, and then he kind of started dragging his feet a little bit. 2 lessons a week, he's like, oh, swimming. And then we just kind of backed off, and then he took a break from swimming for 2 weeks, and then he was just excited to go back into it. So I think it's sometimes we lose the sight, and we get so um, you know so focused on finding activities for our kids all the time, that we sometimes don't realize that we're not letting them be bored and miss certain things, right? I mean,
Yeah.
even as toddlers, or even as preschoolers, and now school going kids, we always want to keep our kids busy. Oh, hey, he's just sitting around, let's give him some Legos and let him play with Legos, or let me do an activity for him, let me sit down with him and actually play with him. But sometimes kids come up with the most creative things when they're just bored, and boredom is a key to creativity, right?
Yeah,
And
and
I think,
becoming okay with boredom and finding your own way out of it rather than being given something, like
yeah,
then you're never really like using your own brain creativity to escape that so-called boredom or escape that idling. If your parents or your teacher or your tutor or your after-school extracurricular coach is always the one doing something and putting you on a regimen, putting you on a schedule, you're always, I'm going to do this, then this, then this, then this. If you're so regimented at a young age, I mean, like the last time I looked up these statistics, it was quite a while ago, so maybe it's a bit outdated, but like this was a few years ago, but like South Korea, for example, and Japan are two of the countries that have some of the highest rates of young children with anxiety, depression, and burnout, and even suicide in teenage years. And a lot of that is attributed to basically like their schedule is so regimented. These kids are waking up at like 4:30, 4:45 in the morning, and they're doing like either violin lessons, piano lessons, or swimming or something, and then they're going to school and they have like a very strict rigid 8 hour 9 hour school day. After that they go do some extracurricular sport. After that they come home and do homework. Then they have a tutor that comes in and gives them extra prep, extra materials to do, and then they finally get to chill out for like an hour before they go to sleep. I mean, that's really like not a life of a 5-year-old child.
yeah.
That's more regimented than my life.
Yeah, we're not letting kids get bored enough. I
Yeah.
think growing up, and I see this is a trap that we all fall into, right? We see someone else, oh yeah, they're doing swimming lessons, they're doing gymnastics, or they're doing karate, or they're doing, uh, fencing, or whatever activity, and then we're thinking, oh, we should be doing that for our kid, or we should be taking them to Kumon, and we should be getting a tutor for Spanish, and you kind of fall in this trap where you're just kind of forced to keep up with the other people, the other parents, and what they're doing, and then you realize that you filled up your child's complete schedule, and there's no time for them to be bored. I mean, I remember as a kid, I would, this was my childhood. I mean, I would you know, go to school in the morning, come back from school, maybe work on some homework, maybe watch a little bit of TV, and then just go outside and meet up with friends and just be on the streets playing. And sometimes my parents wouldn't even know what street I'm on, or
Yeah.
it was things were maybe much safer, or parents were a little bit more trusting of the surroundings and the neighborhood, that they let you out and just go be on your own. Some days we would be going out and playing some, sports and whatnot, and some days we would just be goofing around in the neighborhood, getting in trouble or running around, or sometimes ding dong ditching or whatever,
Yeah.
But
A
we,
lot,
we
a lot of doorbell ditching.
yeah, like so we just kind of did this fun stuff and got bored and came up with creative ideas, sometimes got in trouble, and that's how you learn how to kind of interact with other kids, get into fights, and maybe solve those conflicts. You learn perseverance, that you are bad at a sport and you're playing with your friends, and you are bad at it, and then they start making fun of you, and you work on getting better at it. So you
Yeah,
learn.
cultivating trash talk is a very important skill to learn.
Yeah, and and for some reason now, I think we've regimented our kids that they don't have that time for outside play, the play where they just unstructured play, where they go out with their friends and just play or do activities on their own, and that's, I think, having a negative impact on a lot of younger kids, where where they're not developing those social skills, how to interact with their peers, and how to resolve conflict, and how to persevere, how to stick with one activity and try to master it and be focused on it. The attention span is also shortened because they're used to doing so many things in one day, that it's hard for them to maybe focus on one thing and just stick with it and try to get better at it, right? Instead of
Yeah,
doing too
no,
many
for
things.
sure, man. Another thing that's interesting, I think, I mean, when kids are like 2, 3, 4 years old, they're really little, but like, especially as kids get a little older, um, when we were growing up, kind of what you're talking about, those stories. I mean, I think anyone who's listening who grew up in like the 90s, early 2000s can relate. Like, there was no ability to really track your kids. Like, there was no parent that knew where their kids were because no one had smartphones. There was no geo tracking. You were just like, hey, mom, dad, I'm going to go hang out with my friends, ride bikes, whatever. I'll be back when it's dark and we'll have dinner. And it was like a normal thing to routinely hang out without parental or adult supervision close by. You were just kids by yourselves, give or take a few years here and there, but just a bunch of kids hanging out doing kid stuff. But nowadays, it's so much like you are just one click, one button on your smartphone away, one button on your Apple Watch or whatever away. You're really like constantly in this aura of supervision. and you're not really like being free to be a kid except when kids are interacting with each other like online. That's often one of the first and only times, even through like teenage years, that a lot of kids are basically in a setting where they're interacting, texting, talking, posting, and all this stuff. They're interacting in this medium and social media on all of these apps without any adults around, and that's a very impersonal interaction compared to an in-person, real-life interaction. There's like we were talking about this a little bit offline, but like there's a disconnect when I'm texting about something or posting on social media without looking at someone face to face. You almost like the online trolls, that whole like mindset is that you're protected from any recourse by talking trash online or making fun of someone or bullying someone online compared to doing it in real life. I mean, people are much less likely to be as aggressive or vile or vulgar or mean spirited in real life face to face than they would be with kind of that just disconnect that you're doing it on a screen, whether your laptop or your cell phone. And I think that's like a very common way that kids nowadays are interacting without adult supervision. But it's like it's almost, I don't want to say artificial because it's real, it's happening, but it's not how the rest of human society up to this point has grown up. The rest of human society grew up with kids being kids around each other, not just adults supervising them at all times, knowing where they were at all times. So I don't know really the consequences of that. I personally don't think it's great. Um,
Yeah,
but I
when
think
you know
it's a
when
huge
you're interacting online, it's you don't see the person's facial expressions. You don't see their if they're hurt or they're excited or they're angry or they're sad about it. You can say whatever you want and just in your tone, maybe in your mind, you're just like, oh, this is just trolling, or we're just having fun, we're just joking around, but you don't get to see what the other person is feeling or how they're reacting, and you might be hurting someone's feeling when you're saying doing some trolling online, but you just don't care because it doesn't really affect you, right? That's not
Yeah, you
how,
can't
how
see the reaction immediately. And it's not organic, right? Like in real life, you have a response and a counter response right then and there because that's what's normal. It's not calculated and you think about it, you ruminate on it, you write a text, you delete it, you change a word here and then you finally post something. That's not like a normal human interaction in an in-person setting. But that's really what like the social media sphere is. Very little of it is instant spontaneous. Most of it is like calculated, curated, edited, and then finally put out there.
Yeah, that whole playing outside, going out on the streets and playing with kids a different age group. Like, sometimes I remember going out and playing with a kid that was maybe 4 or 5 years older than me versus and maybe a kid that was 2 years younger than me, and you'd learn from all of them about how to do certain things or about certain things about life. Some of the older kids would say certain things. You're like, what are they talking about? And then you would look it up. You would kind of ask someone else, or maybe too embarrassed to ask a friend, and you would kind of try to figure out from someone else unrelated. Hey, what is that? I heard about that, and you,
Right.
you learn things, right? So I think that whole interaction has kind of moved into online gaming now. And so many kids are spending so many afternoons just connected to a headset and a video game set, and they're just playing these online games where they're trash talking and saying things, and but with complete strangers, and that complete stranger on the other end could be a 35-year-old guy, and that's playing a
Right,
game with a
right.
kid and can be saying whatever to your kids. Uh, but that's not a natural interaction. A game where you're shooting or role playing certain characters, and they're not your true friends. The people that you're playing with on the other line are not your true friends. Now there could be a point where you're playing with your own friends from your school, but that's still not organic interactions like we used to. And this could be something like, oh, back in my day we used to do this, but human interactions were never supposed to be digital, and now this is a whole new frontier of how kids are developing. And a lot of kids don't know how to talk to the opposite sex anymore. I mean, a lot of the young guys don't know how to uh, you know talk to a girl, maybe ask out a girl for a dance, or to homecoming dance, or to prom, or even out on a date. I mean, a lot of young people in college don't know how to ask a girl out for a date, and a lot of girls now feel weirded out if a guy walks up to them and asks them to maybe go for lunch or a coffee date with them. Right? That's not something that's
Yeah.
actually useful anymore. But back when we were in college,
Yeah, I mean that's like all the like the masculinity stuff, right? And you can take that in the extreme with people, the so-called manosphere, who are like, in a very kind of vile way, trying to, in their mind, take back masculinity. But they're doing it in a very chauvinistic and demeaning way to women. And that's like a reaction to what you're describing, right? That for whatever reason, I mean, no one really knows why, but that, yeah, there has been kind of a stymieing of masculinity in society, and men are not brought up the same way. You know what I mean? Like, it's crazy. Like the other day, I was holding a door for someone, like because I was walking in front of them, and I looked back, and there was a girl walking behind me, so held the door, and she didn't even say it in like a rude or mean way. She was just like, "Oh, I don't need you to hold the door. I can do it." And I was like, "Okay, that's fine. I mean, all right." Like, it's not something worth getting an argument into, and it wasn't even like a uncomfortable conversation. It was just kind of odd. I was like, I waited an extra couple seconds to hold the door for you. Probably would have done it if it was a dude behind me too. It wasn't just because she was a woman. I think it's just a polite thing to do. But like little stuff like that. I don't know. I think that there's definitely been a change. And even if you look now, it's like statistics, right? Like the current generation is having less sexual encounters in their teenage years and their early 20s by far than generations in the past. So that is definitely something that has changed. Similarly, like rates of alcohol consumption have gone down in the current generation compared to generations prior. I mean, there's probably a strong correlation between the two, right? Like alcohol, partying, inhibition loss, and getting in bed with somebody. But like basically impulse control and making so-called bad decisions, but more so like adolescent, young adult decision making in that environment has changed. It's changed completely. People either aren't putting themselves in that situation, or it's much more guarded.
Yeah. A big part of, and this might be, I was reading this article about how, back in the day, a lot of men were associated with taking more risks than usual, right? They were known to be the ones that maybe went on to venture into a new area without any supervision, knowing what's coming, or investing money into a business that they did not know is going to succeed or not. So taking those extra risks was being part of this old school manhood, right? And part of that risk was also courting women, where they would go up to a girl and ask them to maybe go out on dinner with them, or go for a coffee, and that whole idea of taking a risk has completely gone away, where people in general, like men or women, are just more scared to take risks now. The idea that a guy what a guy thinks now, that when they go up to a girl to maybe ask them out on a date, they would come off as creeps, right? Or maybe come off as someone who's desperate, who cannot find a woman on their own. Just and women might also be awkwarded out by someone who just comes up to them, because those traditions have changed. Now it's much more easier to find someone to date or go out on a date with through apps, just by swiping, and there's clear stats on that, where people used to meet each other in neighborhoods or churches before, and then people used to meet in workplaces before, or at school before, and now they're mainly, majority of the couples are meeting on social media or apps, which is a huge change, and that change has happened in the past. I'd say 15 years. I mean, when I
Yeah,
met
for
my
sure.
wife, there was no apps, so I completely skipped this whole app generation. I never got to do that, or never had to do that. But
You
that,
weren't a, rapid right swiper,
no, I was
huh?
not. I've never downloaded one of those apps, because I just don't know how those work anymore, or I just never learned how those work. But this is so new that even me, relatively younger person who hasn't been married for that long, has not used those apps. So this is a very new phenomenon. And over the past 10 years or so, this has just completely overtaken, and is now the majority.
Yeah, it's the dominant form of meeting
Dominant,
someone.
yeah,
It for
dominant
sure
form of
is.
meeting someone. So
Yeah. I think it's interesting. It's like, I mean, it's almost like small talk and the ability to engage in like a non like aggressive, non-anxiety provoking random interaction, like a cold encounter has just totally died. Like if you get an elevator nowadays, everyone stands in the
it's on
elevator
their
like
phone.
this. You know what I mean? Like, and it's not like great conversations are had in elevators in the past. It's just like everyone is just plugged in all the time. You know, you're standing in the TSA line at the airport right before you got to like do the buzz thing. Everyone's just on their phone. You know, like every single setting where you're idling even for a few minutes, you're waiting in line at your Dunkin' Donuts or whatever coffee shop, everyone's on their phone. I mean, I remember when I was like a teenager, even early college, like I had like a little flip phone before I finally got an iPhone eventually. There was nothing on it other than the ability to text and make phone calls. And a lot of people were in that situation. I mean, you would regularly just kind of chat casually with whoever was in line next to you. It was like a normal thing. I would be at the grocery store and you just like talk to someone who's waiting in line. I mean, the person in front of you has 40 items in their cart. You're going to be sitting there for 5 minutes waiting. You might as well talk to someone rather than just stand there. But now you have an alternative to boredom. You literally have access to everything in the world on your phone. So people are plugged in. And I think
Yeah.
it's kind of like your social juice, right? Your social battery. Like anything that human beings do, you get used to it and accustomed to it. You build habits. It's practice. You practice talking. You practice engaging, and you lose practice in that. You get out of so-called social shape, and you're much more hesitant or nervous, or just not used to being approached by someone, or vice versa, doing the approaching. I think that's definitely a real thing. I mean, I remember when we were younger, like me and my friends, all of us, you know, when you'd go out and stuff. I mean, we would like mess with each other, like, hey, you know, like that girl's really attractive. Like, do you think you could go talk to her? We would crash and burn all the time. None of us, we wouldn't pretend like we were awesome, had game or whatever. Just
Yeah.
it was just fun to do, and like it wasn't off-putting. We didn't do it in a vulgar way. It was just you were just young and you're trying to, you know, get interest with someone of the opposite sex. It's a very normal thing, but that doesn't happen as much now. I mean,
Yeah.
people are just worried or
The
anxious.
people who do that, people who talk to you in the elevator or in a grocery line or at a club or bar, like, they're considered kind of creepy or intrusive now. That's what a lot of people have started to have those thoughts. Or even your Uber driver, right? I mean, the whole idea of, like, you're riding in a car with someone, and some people just prefer not to talk or engage at all.
Yeah.
That's just insane to me, right? I mean, people, yeah, and even some
It
Uber drivers
seems
have their
rude.
headphones
Like
in.
I feel rude if I'm like just sitting there quiet, like scrolling on my phone for 40 minutes from the airport to wherever I'm going. I
Yeah.
feel like obligated to talk to the person, you
But
know?
it's truly an option on Uber. You say that, no talking or
Which is
silence,
crazy.
which is crazy. Like, there's a guy that's driving you, and you just don't want to even talk to him and learn about him. And sometimes the Uber drivers themselves have headphones in, and they don't want to talk to you.
Yeah,
Like, they just
right.
want to drive you someplace, and just and that's just just how much we do not prefer human interaction anymore. And now, with AI coming in, a lot of people are seeking even mental health and therapy through AI. It's a whole phenomenon
Yeah,
now.
I think that's like horrible. That's just my knee-jerk reaction. You know, when I first read about that, I think it's like, you know, these AI, so many, like, what are they using? They're using like ChatGPT or like Perplexity or Gemini or whatever. I mean, these like mostly free services that you can pay for some advanced version, right? I mean, they are conditioned to give you a response. Like the primary goal of all of these things is to give a response. It's not necessarily to give the best response. And they've been found study after study after study that they are inaccurate. They will fabricate information just to give a response, and the data is not always generalizable. And people that are relying on them as their actual psychiatric therapist, I mean, that could be very dangerous. You know, on superficial fluff stuff, it may give you something that sounds reasonable, but like, can it really delve into deep emotional issues and, you know, like help you work out trauma and stuff? I mean, God, I would be very
Well,
worried.
not it's not just that they're not effective, it's they're harmful, because there are
Yeah.
definitely reports of them enabling someone's psychosis. And there's people, because what these platforms are meant to be, or some they have been designed, or the way their algorithm is working, or the way the large language models are working, they're kind of agreeing with you and perpetuating what you're saying. So a lot of people that are talking to them about their psychosis or visions that they're having or sounds that they're hearing in their head, the AI has been perpetuating it and maybe encouraging it and enabling it, and then and putting them in a deeper psychosis. And there's been reported suicides as well based on that. I read this article recently on New York Times about people who committed suicide, and then when parents went back or they found their chats with their AI software, which found them to having these psychotic thoughts, and chat GPT or AI or whatever software they were using did not do anything to help or reduce those thoughts, but they even perpetuated, agreed with them, and then enabled them to even think deeper into that, fall deeper into that psychosis. So this whole idea of finding comfort or human touch with AI is very dangerous and can be hurtful for human emotions. You need a professional, a psychiatric professional to kind of talk to you, and a human to kind of feel a connection with, rather than a computer to talk to.
Yeah, I mean, it really like emphasizes the artificial part of artificial intelligence. It is still not like a real human thing, no matter how much it might sound like it when ChatGPT types its response to you. And I think that in a way, Humayun, it kind of harkens back to the episode we did specifically more on AI. It like the liability, like how are these companies not liable for something like that? Identifying a potential red flag and not only not reporting it or, you know, alerting someone something that this person is like on the fence, but enabling it further, right? That's crazy. Like if that person, God forbid, like had called a suicide hotline, and the person on the hotline was like, "Yeah, you're right. These crazy thoughts you're having on that is wild. Yeah, it might be a conspiracy. You know what I mean?" Rather than calling the local 911 or something, that person would be like up a creek. Um, but it's not the same thing. I think that whole like issue of liability regarding AI and the consequences of what these algorithms are saying and doing in their own data sets that they're trained on to give those responses. I mean, that's a huge thing that hasn't really been talked about in the main sphere of society. I think it's a big issue.
Well, all they have to do is write below there that a lot of times these algorithms can be wrong, and don't use it as a medical advice or practice. And that all they have to do is just that statement in there, and that's their liability. I mean,
Yeah, but
or
like I don't think in real life there's any such thing as a blanket statement. It's kind of like every patient I do surgery on, they sign a consent form that even if an earthquake hits the hospital, like they'll be okay. You know what I mean? Like, but just signature on a consent form that happens to list every known possible complication and permutation, it still doesn't protect you if something heinous occurs.
Yeah, but is this the cause of all the ills in society or the issues in society, or this just one of the symptoms where people are so isolated and so lonely and have minimal human interaction now that they're kind of feel more comfortable talking to something more artificial, right? I mean,
Or
the
maybe it's
average.
the only route they have. Maybe and
Yeah.
it may not be comfort. It's the only thing that some people might have.
The other crazy data I read recently was the average age of someone who watches porn is now 12 years of age, which is
12.
insane. A 12-year-old is now being enticed with these free pornographic videos and images,
And that's
and
crazy because that's average. I mean, that means there's people
average.
way younger than that to balance out the bell curve,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, and that's insane, because now a 12-year-old kid can fall into that trap and kind of get stuck in there and never truly have any human interaction, and not even seek it, because just because they're feeling satisfied in a certain way, that they not even motivated to go out of their way, and they're evolving that way. Their brain is growing into that kind of conditioning where they don't even feel the need to go out and seek another partner, right? That as biological beings, we're made to seek a partner, whichever way we can, to reproduce or mate or be with in the future. And now that need or desire is going down. I mean, you've seen the stats in Japan. I mean, a lot of things in Japan, they're also having very few sexual encounters. Socially, they're more isolated, and the anxiety and depression over there is much higher, because of a lot of the times people have isolated themselves, and replaced a lot of the personal needs they have with technology or toys, which is scary. And that's kind of where society is moving, where we don't want more human interaction.
Yeah, it is sad. I mean, I do think, I'm going to sound like a dinosaur saying it, but I think social media has a huge part to play. I mean, it has great effects too. I mean, it has, I mean, the connectivity, but also like making the world overall aware of what's going on elsewhere in the world and not relying on just mass media. I mean, there's so many positives of social media, obviously, but like on a day-to-day basis, people are just plugged in and it has eliminated real life interaction in a large way. And, rather than like, for example, I'd read something interesting in an article somewhere. And I come home and I talk to my wife about it. We discuss it. We have opinions, blah, blah, blah. Now I'll just like share it. I'll send it in a Instagram message or something to her. She'll give it a double tap, heart like, and then be like, wow, cool. Or haha, crazy. And like I'll do the same thing when she's like, but that's not like a real, we haven't really communicated, interacted in any meaningful way on that. We've made no real connection. We've made no deeper thought. We've had no next level thinking using this as a source to then have a real conversation and a real human interaction and build and continue our connection. And the same thing in like friend groups. Like we'll share a random WhatsApp group and we'll send like an article or a link or a video or something. It'll get a bunch of likes and then it's kind of it. It just fades into acknowledgement. That's all it is. It's not real discussion as much as just, okay, you sent it. I will acknowledge that I have seen this. And
Yeah,
then
and
you move
sometimes
on.
people just don't even look at the article. They just look at the topics and like they just react to that, right? That's they're not even diving deep into what you're trying to tell them. They're not reading anything about it, maybe a paragraph or two, and then they're just giving their views and maybe just acknowledging it. And something you wanted to share, you personally felt that you shared with a bunch of people and your friends, but no one ever really read it or saw it and thought about what you were trying to tell them, right? So the quality of human interaction, social media has a huge part to play, right? The social media, along with what happened in 2020. I mean, in 2020 in COVID, that was a scary time. I mean, a lot of us were isolated. We kind of leaned on these things, and at that time it was kind of nice. We 2020 we were all kind of trapped in our apartments. Some of us, me and you, were in the hospital still seeing human beings, but there were a lot of people
Yeah.
that were just had no interaction with other human beings. And some at that time, those Zoom interactions with your friends were nice. You could just sit there and have a conversation with them through Zoom, and that felt nice. And then people just after that, the work from home culture just took over, right? And so many people went work from home where they're now not even interacting with other people outside the people they're living in their homes. They are not meeting new interesting people. They're not having those water cooler conversations. They're not sitting down and going to lunch with their colleagues. And the whole creative spark that comes in when you interact with people that are different than you, that just went away. And we all became these creatures that just stay in front of screens and do what we're told to do and just log off and that we're done and we're back to our families, right? Those interactions that guys at work used to have with other guys, or people used to meet and date at work, right? People used to make lifelong friends at work or at school. That's not happening anymore.
Yeah, man. I mean, it makes you think, like kind of what we started the episode with about parenting, right? And we want our kids to do blank career, this career, even before the career. I mean, it's an even more pressing question, especially our kids are, Rayan is 3, Aslan is 4. Like, how do you, when do you expose your child and allow them to participate in social media? I mean, it's almost impossible not to, like, to be a human in 2025. It's just so common and it's almost necessary in order to have social groups, blah, 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 be aware of stuff. But when is it safe and how do you like gradually introduce it? And at what levels do you introduce it? I mean, I don't have an answer to that question. I think it's so challenging. I've thought about it a lot, like, and a couple things that I have saw recently. I mean, one is like in Texas right now, there's that so-called ban of social media and smartphone usage in schools that just came through the legislature, which I think is a positive. Like, let kids disengage from that while they're at school, but that doesn't stop them from using it when they're at home or anywhere else. Um, I don't know. It's a thing that's on my mind a lot. Like, once Rayon's friends all start getting smartphones, if they start getting it at, I don't know, 5, 6, whatever, and he doesn't have it, he's going to be the odd one out. I think that's a very young age to be on something like that and exposed to whatever the heck is going on the internet, anything you can access. I think it creates a situation that's more dangerous than beneficial.
Yeah, I mean that's a tough thing, right? How do you, that now schools are some schools are restricting phones, but some schools kids can take their phones too. I mean, when you have TikTok in front of you with 30-second videos or 20-second videos every with a swipe, and you can just go into the rabbit hole of watching TikTok videos. How are they going to pay attention to a boring lecture, right? I mean, our attention
Totally.
spans have gotten so short where we're living in these 20, 30-second video clips. There's no way. Sometimes I find myself even, I'm watching a movie which is maybe 2 hours long, and when the movie kind of has a down phase, I start like just scrolling on my phone.
Yeah, the doom
That's so bad,
scrolling. I mean, yeah.
right? The doom scrolling is so bad, and who am I to teach my kid when I'm doing all the wrong things myself, where I'm getting on my phone during a movie, and sometimes those movies are pieces of art, right? And they have these scenes that are meant to be paid attention to, and the director was trying to tell something through those scenes, and you're just scrolling and not really even engaged in the movie as much. Our attention spans have gotten so short. I mean, that's why I think. I mean, when we talk about screen time for kids, I think watching a long form movie like a 35 to 40 minute show, or a 1.5 hour long movie is more beneficial to kids, because they learn how to pay attention for an hour and a half. They take some lessons out of the movie or TV show, versus like these 15-10 minute short videos that kids watch. They get the dopamine hit and they forget, and then move on and they watch another episode, right? I think
Totally. It turns them into honestly just like very short burst, acute pleasure seeking little monsters. Like they're just going from dopamine spike to dopamine spike to dopamine spike rather than actually being forced to make their attention span stronger. Like the idea of focus isn't just something we're born with. You have to train and learn how to focus. And kids cannot focus if all they're doing is one YouTube video to the next, one YouTube video to the next. Even if, it's an awesome video. Like I love Miss Rachel. I think she's amazing. But just going from one 3-4 minute video with songs, sounds, dances to the next one, Coco Melon, Peppa Pig, all this stuff, or even like kids who they want to watch a movie and then they're like complain, oh, I want to watch this or I want to watch this. Now, you said you want to watch Monsters Inc. We're watching the whole thing until you want to get up or you're done doing whatever, then we'll restart it tomorrow at the same spot. You got to watch the whole thing before we do something else. I think it's really important to be strict about some of that stuff. Not, eliminating the screen. We're not cavemen. This is a part of their life. They got to interact with technology, but do it in a way that actually teaches them a lesson and builds a bit of focus. I think that's a really crucial thing at a young age.
Yeah, and with social media, the short form videos plus the interaction, the whole thing we're talking about earlier, where people can just troll or bully kids on social media. I mean, how do you protect your kids from that? We both watched that
Yeah.
TV show, Adolescence, right?
Yeah. Great show.
Great show, but it was kind of sad as a father of a boy. I mean, you want the best for them. You try to raise a good son, but what they're going through behind their computer screens. I mean, the dad was like, in that monologue at the end, the dad was like, I tried doing everything I could. I mean, I tried to be the best dad. I tried to not do what my dad did. I even gave him computers so he could study and do work, but little did I know that's gonna lead to what happened to him. So that's just it's a scary time, and something that I'll always be looking for answers as a dad of what is the right thing to do, how much control to give, how much independence to give, plus how much supervision I need to do, right, on these things. At some point they'll need social media, but what is the right age? I mean, it's inevitable. Social media is inevitable. At some point, they'll need to have an iPad. They'll need to have a smartphone or some kind of VR device that what's going to take over the world eventually in the future. But what is the right age? When are they ready for it? I don't know. I mean, I don't think we have that. Some people say 15 years of age. Some people say 12 years of age.
And then, the bigger question is, are adults even ready for it? I mean, it's here, we use it. Are we actually ready for it? Like maybe it's not really in the grand scheme a good thing, and it's not a net positive for anybody. But
Yeah.
unfortunately, it's here to stay, and just got to deal with it.
Yeah, I mean, I know some kids that already have smartphones at a very young age. When they're 5 or 6 years old, they are on social media. They have their own social media accounts where
I
they're
just,
posting.
I honestly like, if some of those parents are listening, I'm not trying to denigrate you, but I think that's crazy. Like a 4-year-old, a 5-year-old having their own smartphone and access to whatever the hell they want to do. I mean, I
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to judge anyone as a parent, and you don't know what their kids like and what their kids need, and how they're parenting. Maybe they have a good reason, but you know,
maybe they
uh,
do, but I'm just saying, I think it's crazy.
we were just not, and maybe this is it. Maybe 30 years ago, the way our parents were raising us, maybe their parents were like, what are they doing? Why are they doing these? Why are they being so accommodating? And maybe our parents look at that and maybe criticize our parenting skills, right? So, but one thing is for sure that the young people entering the workforce right now are struggling, right? There's very few jobs out there for him, and whenever they're are joining the job force, there's a certain theme surrounding it. And I don't want to criticize anyone. There's a lot of good things with Gen Z and Gen Alpha. They're doing a lot of good activism, and they have very good views, and they have very good values, and morally they're very strong. But there's a lot of things about their attention spans and their perseverance and their ability to stick to a task and complete it and focus on it. There's a big gap in that I'm experiencing. I'm seeing it. A lot of other people that are working with these individuals are seeing, and I've read many articles about it. Now, it might be overblown. Maybe when the millennials entered the workforce, maybe a lot of people had those views about them as well. This might be a generational thing as well. But I think building focus, like you said, is a skill, and that skill needs to be honed, right? And right now, the way our society is, those skills are hard to be honed and hard to be developed, with the tools that we have right now.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
We'll see. We'll see what
Yeah,
happens.
more questions than answers as always.
More questions and answers. I don't think we gave any good advice on this. We just brought up questions,
Yeah.
and maybe I'll
But
be
it's
thinking
it's
about these
interesting
questions.
stuff to think about. I mean, these are the conversations that everyone has in their own friend groups with their families, their spouses, their homies when they're chilling, whatever. I mean, these are questions that everyone's asking, everyone's thinking about, right? Because everyone's going through the same thing. I mean, young parents like ourselves, these are the dilemmas we have. Like, we want to do what's best for our kids.
Yeah.
There's no
We're
blueprint.
always,
You just
whenever it's funny, you grow up and you feel like your parents knew exactly what they were doing, and they were these experts, and but now you look back and they were just parenting for the first time too, and they had no other experience besides you,
we're
right?
all
So
experiments, bro.
we're all experiments, and we're experimenting with our kids too. So let's see
Yes.
how things go.
Well, all right, guys. Thanks for tuning in to another Two Docs, One Mic. We'll catch you all next time.
All right, two dads, one mic.
Two dads, one mic. That's right.
All right, later.